Your organization is a very noteworthy organization in Asia. Particularly, the main focus of our do is to assist in the formation and growth of training and development organizations internationally, cooperating with international organizations, private and government institutions working in the field of human resource development. It also encourages and sponsors research and publications designed to meet the training and development needs. So Janaprit and I go back a long way. We are both scouts. And of course, as you know, Janaprit is a President Scout. And he is one of the leaders and pioneers of the Scout movement in Sri Lanka. So he deals and interacts with a large section of human society. And I would say that my association with Janaprit culminated in me appointing him as the advisor to me in the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Sports. 3 ministries which gave me a tremendous amount of satisfaction for a short period of 8 months. And I can tell you that if Janaprit and I had been able to work for a bit more longer, we would have completely cleaned up the sports law in Sri Lanka and eliminated a sense of corruption that lies at the heart of cricket in Sri Lanka. So Janaprit's capacity for work, dedication, discipline, and honesty is known amongst everybody. You're particularly lucky to have Janaprit as one of your leaders in this organization. Happy birthday, Janaprit. Although you are getting on in age at 52, this is still a very young age, and I'm sure you're still young in spirit and heart. And there is a lot of work to do in this organization and other organizations as well. When we come, of course, to the gamut of your organization and its thrust of policy initiatives, I would say that Sri Lanka is also very much enthralled in that topic of management and leadership. We have, of course, had a very unfortunate history after independence in 1948. There has been a terrorist movement in the north and also a rebellious ultra-Marxist movement in the south of Sri Lanka, costing 50,000 lives in the south and equally the same amount of lives in the north. Several noteworthy politicians in Sri Lanka who could have transferred and transformed the dynamic nature of our country into at least a second world country by now were eliminated by these ruthless terrorist organizations. I'm sad to say that my father was one of those leaders. He contested for the presidential election in 1994 as a presidential candidate and was assassinated at the height of his political career. So Sri Lanka has had a very brutal past, a very painful past, a path that has been drenched in blood. And we are just emerging out of the shadow of this ruthless terrorism that emasculated my country. Therefore, I would welcome organizations such as yours that would upgrade, educate, and bring our peoples into a generational age of intellectual thinking and transformation that would give them the skills that are necessary to be managers and leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, management is one aspect, leadership is another. I'm sure you have come across this argument as well. How are managers made and how are leaders made? My thinking on this is that management can be acquired. The skills of a manager can be acquired. It takes time, it takes training, it takes intellectual import, but of course, you can always make a manager. But what about a leader? Can leadership also be acquired? I don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you is that there are certain leadership skills that you need to learn. And that takes time. That takes effort. That takes understanding. And that takes empathy. Especially for a democratic political leadership, you need to be very patient. You need to be very tolerant. And you need to understand the pros and cons of democracy. And especially in Sri Lanka, where the democratic network and practices have taken root, it is ultimately the will of the people that determines policy initiatives. As you know, we've had a past of socialism and capitalism. Sri Lanka, when we gained independence in 1948, we were only second to Japan in gross domestic product. We were ahead of Singapore and South Korea and Malaysia. But we've had a very painful past of socialism, where our growth rates were stifled by the lack of capital growth. But of course, at that time, in the 1950s, 60s, and the 70s, the trend was socialism. As you know, starting from India with Nehru, in Africa with leaders like Nkrumah and Kenyatta, we've had a whole process of going through socialism. And I would say, if you look back at that process, that socialism stifled entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka. The growth rates that we could have had, 7, 8, 9% in the 60s and 70s, were 4, 5, and 6%. So we lost out on nearly 3 decades of rapid growth in my country. And of course, there have been so many intellectual articles linking the lack of growth in the north and east, where the young Tamil people were with poverty, and how the southern section of Sri Lanka grew at a rapid pace, and the economic development did not go to the northern and the eastern people of my country. Therefore, one could argue that economic stagnation overcame these young people and they rebelled against the system. Therefore, we had people like Prabhakaran asking for a separate state. So you can actually pin down the root causes of rebellion in Sri Lanka to economic reasons. So we must get out of this. We must, in Sri Lanka, have entrepreneurship, dynamic growth, managers and leaders, all in one line, who can think alike, synchronize, and have major policy initiatives to take this nation of 20 million people forward. I'm sure we can do it. And I'm sure people in this room can contribute towards that. And of course, in Sri Lanka, there have been so many debates about growth and equity. As you know, Some countries in this region, like Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, Thailand, have had tremendous growth. And now China, 8, 9, 10% growth rates. But these growths are not going down to the people, one could argue. Taiwan is the country that one could model, where growth has been there with equity. In Sri Lanka, we've had growth mainly in the western province, where you are now, where the capital is here. But when you go out of Sri Lanka, there hasn't been that much growth. There has been growth, but we haven't had growth of 6, 7, 8%. So there is another policy initiative that we should take to have growth in equal measure to all parts of the country. Therefore, Sri Lanka is blessed with so much of potential. As you know, our tourism was taking off when the April bomb blast happened, and now it's coming back again. The sector that I am leading, the plantation sector, has tremendous potential. And we are going for smart agriculture now. We are using a lot of new technology, a lot of new fertilizers, a lot of research in seeds and cultivation methods. So I feel that there are certain areas that we can concentrate on and work on and fine-tune. And certainly, ARDU and other organizations can help us in human management skills and development in these key areas. I hope you become part of that. As you know, we are blessed in location-wise. We have two tremendous markets with us, China and India. We are just an arm's reach from these two huge markets. And we find these two countries and Japan